Welcome back, everybody. Thank you all so much for your participation in today's session. I am now pleased to introduce Brigitte Schaden. Brigitte is the president of Project Management Austria, a graduate in actuarial science and business informatics. She's the owner of BS Consulting and works as a management consultant, coach, business mediator, and lecturer. Brigitte is also an IPMA assessor, chair of the Global Alliance for Project Professions, or GAPS, an IPMA honorary fellow, and a speaker at conferences around the world, including Brazil, China, India, Korea, South Africa, Australia, Nepal, Panama, and all over Europe. A former IT leader, project manager, and commissioner, PMO leader, she has served as vice president, president, and chair of the International Project Management Association. I give to you Brigitte Schaden. Welcome, Brigitte.
Thanks, Tim. Too much of an honor. It's not so difficult. It's just necessary to get old and to survive. Then you make it. Yeah. Thanks. So, welcome everybody. In this panel, we want to explore the really pressing need for driving innovation and leading change. And now is definitely the best time of doing this. Now is normally always the best time of doing something. We welcome back Susan Reed, once more the founder and CEO of Edge Dweller. She is using these powerful, practical, and proven innovation practices, as she told us, for more than 30 years. She and her team supported the launch of more than 150 products and services for 122 brands, representing more than 25 industries. It's really unbelievable. You are an innovation expert, Susan, and Tim always says that you are a guru, and we are really happy that you stay for the panel. Thanks. Our second panelist is Martina Huemann. She is professor at the Vienna University of Economics and Business in Austria, where she heads the project management group in the Department of Strategy and Innovation. So she has published widely in the fields of project management and human resource management. Both, in her view, are basic prerequisites for innovation. And she believes in co-creation processes with practitioners and other stakeholders. Thanks, Martina, that you are here. Last but not least, Daniel Baumann, who worked for 25 years as a project program and project portfolio manager in research. And since more than 10 years, he's working at the Zurich University of Applied Science in Switzerland, and currently as a managing director for the university's Strategic Digital Transformation Initiative. That's really pure innovation. And to round off his expertise, he is also certified IPMA level A and B and a business mediator. Thanks, Daniel, for joining. So once more, welcome, and a warm welcome from my side to the audience. We would like to be a little bit more, we would like you to be a little bit more involved. So we decided to have a kind of reverse panel, which means that not just you can ask questions, but also the panelists can ask questions to you. So everything is allowed. There's just one rule. Both the questions and the answers should be short. And we will start with a poll to all of you. And the question fits perfect to the current situation. And the question is crisis management and innovation a contradiction? Yes or no? And I hope Rebecca is working in the background and we can get some kind of result.
Yes, of course. So up to this point, 60 people voted and 50 votes are for no.
50 are for no.
Yes.
So crisis management and innovation is not a contradiction. So question to panel people, is this a surprise or is it exactly the answer you expected?
If I may.
Yeah.
Well, I would think we have a specific crowd already listening to us. Yeah, so probably for this crowd, I would have expected exactly this answer. But as I need to be short, I would just say necessity is the mother of invention.
Okay. Daniel?
I would completely agree with Martina, and I would even say crisis management is probably very much of a synergy to innovation.
And Susan?
I see them, I think, as different things, because I think that sometimes crisis management calls for innovation, and sometimes it calls for communication solutions. Sometimes it calls for, an operational fix. So I think that sometimes crisis management can require innovation to resolve the problem, but I don't really see them as the same thing.
Okay. And which competencies do you think are necessary to enable innovation?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking everybody.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So, but I'm happy to have your answer. So it's just discussion.
I would be very much happy to ask these questions to the whole audience, because this is basically a question which I bring forward based on my experience here at the university. This is, it goes back to the question I put it to Susan when I asked how could you manage a team and bring it to performance out of Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Lady Gagas of this world.
Okay. So do we have somebody from the audience who can give us an answer? Which competencies are necessary to enable innovation?
When they raise a hand, I can give them the opportunity to speak. So please raise a hand if you want to speak.
So you raise a hand when you want to speak. I have in written from John, which competencies are needed for innovation? It's a down to openness, to change, leadership, to create the space. Is this some?
Hello, thanks for giving me the opportunity to participate. I would say to have a team of all this calibers and have all this competency, the most thing with the leader is to have the inclusiveness competence. The inclusiveness will enable him to accommodate all this and listen with an ear compatible, I would say, compatible to what they have.
So for me, it was very difficult to understand. What I understood was something with inclusiveness leadership.
Yes, exactly. So the question was how to manage a team that contains Bill Gates and Lady Gaga and all these different types of calibers. So I would say that to be able as a project manager to do so is to have the competence of inclusiveness, to be able to accommodate all these with, I would say, a neutral mind.
Okay. From my experience as project manager, it was very seldom that we had the chance to combine a team in a way we would like to have them. So normally it was a situation that we were happy to get somebody who was willing to join and to participate. I never had the situation that I was so luxury to be able to choose specific persons or characters to have enough diversity in the team. So maybe this is changing now. Is there any experience outside?
Sorry, may I give an idea from me?
Definitely,
Yes.
welcome.
Okay, sorry. According to my experience, well, if we have crisis management, so we need innovation. But the other ways around, if we have innovation, we might be, but we don't have get the crisis management as well. So this is something that different the way of the thinking, because this is crisis management. They should need innovation, a new innovation, but an innovation doesn't need the crisis management. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on this from the panel?
So I think this is a very good example that just have different perceptions and are. This was more the answer to the first to the first question. And so what I would like to add here is one part to the crisis management and to the innovation. For me, the question was, is it a contradiction? And it's not a contradiction. Yeah. I think Susan said it very nicely and differentiated. And I don't know if innovation management does not need crisis management at no time. Yeah, I would not think so. Yeah, so I would rather think that any management discipline could come into a situation where you need crisis management. But when we relate it to projects, what I was saying before with kind of if we are under pressure or in the COVID situation now, and have the necessity to just change from 1 minute to the other. Yeah, I was so amazed to see so many project teams who just did it. You know, there was no doubt. Yeah, there was nothing. There was not even a hesitation. Yeah, there was just a team effort to do it. And for me, is this crisis situation very much a magnifying lens, if I may say, kind of showing us what actually works in a team and what doesn't work in a team. So my assumption would be that these teams that were able to kind of just jump immediately to this different situation, they have also worked before.
So you mean they worked together before?
Yeah, they were able to kind of create and co-create, and work together. I mean, I agree, Brigitte. Very often, project managers cannot select the team members. Yeah, they are the team members they need to work with. I mean, there is, especially in change management, you have things like voluntary involvement. Yeah, you already have people who would like to be in that. So they have. There's some interventions where this is a little bit different today, but probably many teams are in the situation, as you said, they are just coming together. And this is for me why the project manager, and I would rather like to call it project leader nowadays, is so important to bring the team together, to build trust with the team. So very basic things. And you also do that with still old-fashioned project management methods to create a common understanding and create a common structure to give orientation. Yeah, and for me, this is the basis. Yeah, this orientation, this trust building is the basis for innovation.
And Susan, how do you build trust with the teams and the companies you're working with? Because it's the journey you told us is quite adventurous. So I don't think it's so easy to go, and trust is definitely necessary. How do you do this?
The first thing we do is we prove that it works. I mean, that's always and you know, within an organization. So I think that relates right back to potentially a role that project managers could play in this, is to show people and show organizations that when they go through these stages, that they get bigger, better solutions and they move to implementation. So for us, that's, you know, companies buy our services because of the process. So they literally buy into intentional innovation. And so we literally take them through the process. So they're prepared to go through that. Typically, one of the manager of those projects are people that are leading the innovation initiative within that organization. So it's a little bit different. It isn't a project manager. It's more of an innovation manager who is spearheading the project, but they are managing it, and we manage the process in the stages, and it's outlined in the very beginning, you know, and it has, you know, week by week scheduling and that kind of thing. I do think that if project managers, I think that there's going to be a gap in this because of the movement for organizations to move more to process and innovation, because they just have these pieces all over the place. I think there's a kind of an interesting role that project managers could play. But if you think about the competencies that they would need, they need to understand the process precisely. I think they need to have a role in proving that it works. And then I think that they have a very clear role in organizing it, and they get more authority in things like the role of decision teams and things like that. So if I think they have to understand it intuitively and experientially, and then they get the thumbs up that they need to actually run it. And I think there's a huge role, as I said before, that they could play.
Martina, you said that you were astonished that we had so fast a lot of innovation based on Corona, which leads me to the thesis that maybe people are more innovative when they are under pressure and not when they are relaxed and can just think about it. Is this a conclusion?
Well, I think that had been the case when we went kind of in the first lockdown. I think that putting people permanent under pressure will in the long run not increase the innovation. The one-off shot, yes, I think the pressure, I mean, just taking me personally, could have asked me a year ago, last March, if I would ever teach online. I'm teaching very interactively, project management, a lot with social competences involved. And I would have said, no, never, not possible. Yeah. And now I'm just doing it, you know? So it's kind of this, as a person that you also need to kind of jump in cold water. And sometimes this crisis is then the possibility where you can jump.
I would just, if I can add one point to that, when you mentioned, Martina, the COVID crisis, I mean, that escalated, that was a situation of crises that brought on innovation. And what we saw were companies that had been hesitant to take bigger steps before, being almost forced into it, doing it. And it was one of the most revolutionary things for them, because they saw that they could do it, and they saw the impact of it. So for us, we saw more clients taking, moves like this that they had never taken before. And that was really exciting. There are so many things that changed as a result of that and will continue to change. So that was very exciting. So really good point. I support your theory in that.
For me, sorry, for me, it's quite obvious. And I think I would take a quote up from Susan. Your first point you brought in, saying, don't start ideation without a permission, which for me means also, if you don't have a pressure, if there is no pressure for change, nothing will change. So I think the more pressure you have, and obviously COVID created certainly for all of us a lot of pressure. We had to change and we had to find solutions.
I think that's interesting, because when I was in Stockholm at the Nobel Prize Museum, Nobel Prize winner museum, and they had a kind of survey where in which environments more people were able to win a Nobel Prize. And this was linked to very fancy research centers and very fancy environments. So their assumption is that if you want to really be innovative in a way that you are able to win a Nobel Prize, then it's helpful to be more in a relaxed environment and not under pressure.
Or maybe it has just to do with the visibility of the institute.
I think that sounds better, yes. Because I would.
We have Eric waiting here and somebody else. I think they want to have questions too.
There's one comment from Yvonne. Innovation competence is about creativity, empathy, and foreseeing the future. But this is just one aspect, because then you need to bring the innovation to the market. And then we have a question to Susan. Susan, in a crisis, what can or shall we do for project management with less creative and less critical in thinking? Which way is better to move to? Toward more critical or more creative? Which direction is better to move to?
Well, here's the way I'd answer that, just because of experience typically is that most organizations have a higher percentage of critical thinkers than creative thinkers. Therefore, I would move to more creative thinkers. And then, because you have plenty of critical thinkers that can put, that you can use to put some critiques around that. You just need to give them some guidelines. But I would say focus more on the creativity, because this is the most underdeveloped talent in organizations today and is the greatest need. It's like one of the top 3 needs according to the US World Job Forum in terms of talent that is needed in organizations today. So I would focus on the creativity, because you have the support of the critical thinkers around it.
Thanks. And then we have one comment from Holger. Crisis is a trigger for innovation. Underline this. Rebecca, can you be too kind and to take the next question to the audience?
Eric is already waiting here, so he would like to say something. He
Okay,
has the rights.
good.
Yes, Eric checking in here from Germany. So I just wanted to give my take on what is the core competence for innovation. If I just single out one, I would say curiosity, because I think this is the main driver behind it. Curious people, they innovate. And from process perspective, I like very much the Walt Disney strategy, which is a basic version of what Susan showed. So Walt Disney had this principle: you always start from the dreamer position, and then you also move to the critical, the critic and the realist, and you can swap around, but always you start and end with the dreamer, because this is where the energy is. So this, in addition to curiosity, I would say dreaming, daydreaming are really undervalued assets that we need to highlight.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eric.
I would say, can I add one thing to that?
Yes.
The thing that we found to be most helpful in that scenario is if we put these frameworks around the scenario in the beginning and the end, in the middle, people could do anything they wanted to, because people understood that it wasn't going to be a waste of time. So people can be as wildly creative and curious and dreaming as they want to. And that's what I love about the process. It enables that. It gives it permission to occur. So I totally agree. That's great comments.
Thank you. Holger? Rebecca, does Holger want to say something?
No, he lowered the hand. No, okay, I'm adding the talking rights right now. Here we go.
Okay, so hi.
Hi.
So this is Holger from Germany. So I'm a busy in a, let's say, a hidden champion in Germany. So we're working for great OEMs in the US mainly, and we are innovating, let's say, very intense. And if I share my experience, I would say that a crisis actually is really a great trigger for innovation. However, the pressure which is created by a crisis during the innovation process on an operational level is unhealthy for creativity and the innovation process itself. So as a summary, I would say that really the starting point, the trigger, is a great opportunity for innovation. But then on an operational level, you need to be able to distinguish or to separate the process and protect team which is innovating from pressure in order to succeed in a midterm.
Yes.
As everybody is nodding, Holger, I
Yeah.
think the whole panel agrees.
That's great.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I mean, long-term pressure is always unhealthy. Yeah, that does not only relate to innovation, but to, I would say, to all work, to all project work. Yeah.
All work. It's not important whether it's a
All
project or not. Okay. So Rebecca, can you be so kind and do no,
before
one more? Yeah, no
one
problem.
more. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to chime in on that last point. One of the other things that I've seen with the innovation crisis response is often it's a reactive innovation. And I think there's one thing that you need to be aware of is that if you're doing that reactive innovation to get out of the crisis, you then need to make sure that you're doing strategic innovation after that, so that in addition to moving out of the crisis, you can also see higher impact from all the activity that you're doing to exit the crisis.
Good point.
Yes, I think that's really an important point and something a lot of organizations and companies in the moment should take up.
Yeah, that is so important in terms of creating something beyond the reactionary response. Very important. That's one thing that we advise our clients to do. Create a new solution, make this step number one. You're already on the path there. Really good point.
Thanks. Do we have one more, Rebecca?
Yes, we have one more before the poll. So it's Tikat.
Tikat?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Brigitte.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi. Good to hear you.
I got a question. Of course, based off the conversation we're having now. The PMO question earlier was from me, by the way. So all these iconic figures we talked about, they have such a great capacity and also stamina to drive that innovation, to drive the company. My curiosity now, speaking of which, how do you translate that into organization's culture so that people don't get burned out, when there's a change happening? If you, Google, change management, there's always like 3 or 5 bullets saying, hey, top-down buy-in, for example, a bottom-up approach, make sure, what's the vision, why are we doing the change? But from what are we discussing here, that, the matrix or the graph we talked about, the critical thinkers and other, side of the graph, how do we, or what are the best practices or even directions, particularly to you, Suzanne, that you recommend leaders to take on so that translates to the organization's culture rather than just one individual with this great capacity and stamina,
Okay, I want to make sure I understand the question.
May I just start, Susan, and then
Please.
Because I think Susan gave already part of the answer to that, which would be also very much what I would say here is, if you have a change process, to have kind of short periods. Yeah, you break it down. Yeah, this is what the risk is minimizing. but also what the uncertainty will minimize. So you can then go from one step to the other, yeah, and make better decisions. And by that, you can also take the people with you. Yeah, that's kind of, instead of throwing them into the cold water, helping them to go from one step to the next. And I think this is very, very supporting to the people. Yeah, very. Instead of saying we are now kind of doing this and doing it in a crash, yeah, and giving only the long-term version, but without steps, that creates a lot of insecurity. And I'm not against the vision, and I'm not against the dreaming, but the next step will be that you need to break it down to chunks, to iterations, however you want to work, agile, or you want to work in a chain of projects, does not matter for me at the moment, but it needs to be something where people can digest the change, yeah, and go with it.
Very well, thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, if it's any help, so Suzanne, question was, to make the organization innovative in its DNA, if we are to move that direction from a status quo kind of organization, how do we help the leaders to develop that culture so that innovation piece becomes their DNA? I know it's a big, vague question, but if you have any experiences on that, that'd be great to hear from you.
I think step number one is getting their approval to implement this and to test it. And I know that's crazy, but that's when people say, let's implement it system-wide, we go, no, we want to prove it first. We want you to say that it works. Once you do that, and then typically what happens is you create a small team and that team starts producing. And then what happens eventually is that you end up creating teams within all different divisions in the organization that have more capability. So you start out with a core set of capabilities and you use that team to begin to create solutions. Now, to your point about how much, the volume, the thing that we find is when we use these decision tools, it dramatically decreases the number of initiatives because they're very focused. Because when we go to a company that has 1,000 ideas in their pipeline, we say 1,000 ideas is the same as no ideas because you have no earthly idea what to do with it. So one of the things that we do is we use the process to help them eliminate solutions that make no sense for their organization. And we do that by going back to the decision metrics and helping them understand where there's duplication, where they really don't need additional solutions and things like that. As I said before, even for GE, we took like 50 to 75% of their initiatives off the table. So you clean the slate, you take things off the table that are waste, you let them see how, you reduce it down to the projects that are really going to have the greatest impact. Sometimes we get funding support just by taking initiatives off the table, use the same resources to fund fewer initiatives. So there's a way to start with less that are better. And then there's a way to start using a team, prove it, and then you can start to create more teams within the organization. Sometimes this is not the team's full-time job. It's just that I just think, the creativity part, it takes about 5%. Everything else is the hard, takes all the time. So I could go on and on, but I won't.
Thank you so much, everybody on the call. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tika. So we have a nice question, a difficult one. I guess it's from Peter. I guess mechanical engineers in machine building projects are the most critical persons all about. Where to find the more creative persons in machine building companies?
I can take that up. I think this is a really good statement. I completely agree. And additionally to the mechanical engineers, I would probably also add on all the scientists, particularly the natural scientists, as I am one of those. This is really a problem because this is what I experience at the moment in my big program. I'm working, and this is typical for university, I'm working in an expert organization, and the attitude or the management attitude in such an organization is just very much shaped by the experts. But the experts in this case, or in Peter's case, the mechanical engineers are not those people who are particularly able to guide a process and to help an innovation process. That's at least my experience. And what I would suggest is that you come up with new type of roles in this kind of projects, a type of role which means somebody who is facilitating the process, somebody who is not involved in the content of the project, but completely can focus on helping people to get step by step further. I very much liked the input also of Michael this afternoon, which brought that up. And I think my question, which we already discussed with Susan, how to bring a group of alpha people together to make it a performant team. This is really a challenge, and this is particularly a challenge in the university context. That's at least my experience. And I think we would have to think about new roles there. Mm-hmm. Probably roles which goes along the line of Scrum Master, something like that, mm-hmm. but probably less process guided as in a Scrum project.
Mm-hmm. But that's now the perfect time, Rebecca, to come up with the second poll. Do we still need project managers? Do we still need this role?
Half of the people already voted and they say yes. So it's 97% yes.
Really? That's interesting. What is the panel thinking about this?
I voted yes as well, but the question is not so much how is this role called, but what is the role doing? And I think there is a change there. So we still need project managers, but they probably do different things than classical project manager did so far. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Daniel, what you were describing as the role of a facilitator, yeah,
mm-hmm.
that
Absolutely.
Could be very much the role of the project manager, or call it project leader as you like. I mean, there is labels like servant leadership, yeah, which is actually kind of helping the team and getting things done and getting all the obstacles out of the way. Yeah? So I think we are quite moving into that direction. And I'm also, also my main background is research projects, yeah, and there's always a lot of experts there, and they want to be seen. They want to be seen. They want to shine as experts, yeah. But this is also good that they want to shine as experts, because then let them shine.
But is it not more and more important as a role project manager to be an expert in almost everything? If I take today, you should know what design thinking is, what system thinking is, you should know agile, you should know traditional project management, you should know stakeholder management, you should be innovative, you should be creative, you should be everything.
Well, for me, this is the methods and the skills competence here, and also the attitude. Yeah. So I think it's good for any project manager to know design thinking. Yeah. You know that I have been experiencing since many years with family therapy methods, just bringing them into project management. Yeah. And then you can ask, so why the heck does a project manager need that? I think these are all methods or approaches to deal with complexity, wherever they come from, or whatever background they have. Yeah. So I think, and this is for me part of the core skills of any project manager. But what I would not expect, for instance, in a cancer research project, that the project manager is the main cancer researcher, yeah, because they need a lot of very different disciplines to actually do what they want to do. Yeah? So there, very often you have project managers that really are the facilitators.
We have a
Sorry, I completely agree with Martina, and I would contradict that beside the fact that this is an overload, knowing about everything. I would think that what we precisely do not need anymore are the heroes which know everything and guide everything and do everything. This is really the last thing we need, because the time of the Leonardo da Vinci's, which knew everything and did everything, that it's over quite a long time ago. And innovations are only possible in teams. And that means actually what we need are facilitators which are able to bring a team to performance and do nothing else than that. Yes. And this is the particular role. And I completely agree with Martina and others which have stated that here, that this is a new role, this is a different role. The problem is, in the context that we are now, at least this is my experience, the problem is this role accepted by the experts?
Yeah, I think that it seems like, again, I said that based on our experience, we deal very little with, people in the project management world, but there are so many processes today that, to me, having an expert that at least understands all the different processes that are available and that can make recommendations to the organization on which process is most effective for them to use. It's almost like a consultant within the organization that says, I understand these practices. And then to your point, Daniel, it's also having the people that can actually help facilitate those different practices. They don't have to be the same person, but I do think, and to me, I see how that being a role that the project manager could begin to take on, because there are just so many options today. So if my role is to operationalize and make things work, then how can I help the organization pick the best method, or this situation calls for this type of method or solution, or et cetera. I think that could be a real positive impact. And that's when I say, just thinking about it a little bit, maybe reinvent it, because those skills can be used and manifested in many places. And one more thing I have to tell you, Dana, because this is funny. You're talking about mechanical engineers. Two of our best people performers ever were mechanical engineers that had very high levels of creativity. Okay.
I didn't know.
Now that's rare. It is rare, but unbelievable, because you have this zoom and this, in terms of how they go through it. It's just crazy. And the other thing is to try to, the other thing, your point, which is really important, which is how to narrow that team down, because you don't want a team full of mechanical. You do not want a team full of that. So you have to have them agree to the balance. So you have part of them, they're 3 of the team of 8, right? But you counter them with the other side in the middle, and that's how. And once they see how it works, because they have biases, and we actually prefer having people in a session that know nothing about the solution, that are just great thinkers sometimes, because of that clinging to, the solution, which is normal. We're human, right?
Mm-hmm. So. Thanks, Susan. We have a comment or a question from the audience. Rebecca?
Yes, we do. We have 2, so the first one is now on.
Hi. You can talk.
Meinte here. I hear you say Rebecca, so I was a bit... No
problem. Just talk.
Meinte Wilswit from the Netherlands. I'm an IT project manager, and I would like to respond to the question if project managers are still necessary. I think project managers started up the role because the line manager needed to do something that was difficult to him, like an IT project. And then he looked around and said, hey, guy, can you help me? Because all these IT guys I don't understand. Please help me to realize something. And that was the project manager. What we see now, especially in IT, is that Agile is coming on, and there we get self-organizing teams. And what you see now is that with self-organizing teams, for the line manager, it's getting easier to manage such a team because they are self-organizing. So there, the role of project managers is getting less. On the other hand, these are fixed teams, and there are always jobs. And I think with increasing complexity, what we are doing, it will be increasing that there are teams that you need teams with different roles that are not in the fixed teams. And there still the project manager has something to do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I like that.
Yes, thanks.
That's good.
And then we have Peter.
Yeah, hello, nice to meet you. My name is Peter, I'm from Germany. And I'm a bit transforming now from product management to project management, because I come from enterprise companies and now want to go down to smaller companies. And what I found out is, yeah, this black or white thinking is not suitable, because you have to think about where are you and where you want to go into the future. So that means if you are a smaller company, you think more about common problems, well-known problems, and the uncertainties are not in that high amount. So the solution is more think about lean and not think about agile or something like that. And let me say, in a more lean environmental, of course, you need project managers. Yes. And so the black and white maybe comes up with the speed because of the globalization. The disruption speed is much more higher and comes also to smaller companies. And this is the reason why also smaller companies have a more complex environmental, because they are not known to think disruptive. So again, also for the smaller companies, for the well-known side, they need project managers, and for the unknown side, they need a mixture. So a more generalist of a project manager. And this is, for me, I think this is the future, a more generalist approach, to be open. And let me say, so the Scrum values I highly appreciate, because this is a really good setup for a team to mix different cultures, to mix different behaviors, to make critical people also with creative people. And so yeah, for me, it is not a question, do we need project managers, yes or no? For me, it's a small question, what is the change in everybody's mindset? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. You're
Just agree. Just agree. Absolutely. Now, maybe I can add what we probably also need is not only different description of the role, but we need also a different attitude of the project owners. What I experience is that there is still a large, wide idea about project managers that the first thing they have to do is to have everything under control. And this is completely not useful for innovation, to have everything under control. So this is contradiction to innovation. And I think there we need really a mind shift also from the point of view of the project owners.
Talking about what is useful, we are coming to an end. And my last question to the panelists is, do you have at least one helpful tip for the audience?
One helpful tip for the audience. Well, I think I'm just adding to what was said now, this black and white, just playing with it a little bit, yeah. So yes, there's black and white, but there's a lot of different shades in between. And I would say these shades are not gray, they are very colorful. And what I mean with this, that they're very colorful, is that for me, the future project manager who is supporting innovation, and that has also to do a little bit with the project owner, yeah, is one who likes to be curious, and also, and the word for that is bricolage. Yeah, so you take just the methods that are adequate and you mix them.
Thank you.
Just taking the discussion up, and I would really recommend consider leaving the classical role patterns of project managers and have the courage to give the lead of an innovation project to a service-oriented facilitator. I think that would help a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Susan?
I agree with Daniel. I think there's a huge opportunity to reinvent the role of project management. I think the way that things are evolving, I think there's a beautiful fit. And I think that's what people should consider, because if you can show how this process helps organizations, then I think you can move up and play a much bigger role in that. So I think that's absolutely critical. And we went through 5 game changers before. I'm not going to go through those again because I know we don't have time, but but fundamentally it's the platform. It's a platform, and raising your hand and stepping up to the plate and bringing that to organizations, I think, is very important.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot to the panelists, and thanks to the audience for participation. And Tim, you are now on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel, Susan, Martina, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Wonderful insights. And to the audience, I thank you all for your questions and your insight. We are a virtual room full of experts here.